Welcome back to Worth the Effort Woodworking and segment 9 in our router table build series. And I want to take a quick pause right here. Let's review what we've done, because in essence we have made a very generic tabletop table right now. It is very standard mortise and tenon joinery. We took extra precaution in finding grain that we liked, setting things up the way we like, getting visual elements the way we like, softening, straightening. We built panels in a specific style and we fitted them so we are pretty much gap free except where we wanted gaps in the shiplap design. This is something, if you can't see a kitchen island, a blanket chest, a toy chest, a hope chest, a wall cabinet, anything like that in this design, and we only learned a very few techniques. Yes, I've been giving lots of tips along the way, but tools we've used, pretty limited for a standard shop. I mean, yes, I have some nicer tools and I've tried to show you multiple examples, but very little that we've done right here couldn't be done with some hand tools, maybe the bandsaw to make life easier. A thickness planer would be a good luxury, but you can bandsaw to certain thicknesses and then just smooth out the edges. Nothing about this had to be perfectly flat, perfectly straight, with the exception of our shoulders. I mean, if there was a little bow right here, nobody would know it. If you had some blemishes on the inside, no, I mean, I hope you're getting my point. We've done something pretty incredible with some very basic skills. And this is stuff that you could apply to everywhere else. From here on out, I'm doing stuff that's going to be very specialized for my application. You know, we're going to start on the interior panels to house my router table. So the sizing is going to be fitting for my router table, that kind of stuff, and for applications I want to do. So take that in mind. From here on out, you could customize this stuff, but we're going to be using a lot of the same exact techniques we used to build it, and there weren't that many to begin with. Now, since we've already discussed panels, I went ahead and made up 2 panels for my interior section. The only difference being, instead of putting more of the shiplap stuff, I just used some MDF here. 2 reasons: save time, and B, we're in a shutdown right now. I'm trying not to leave the shop, and this is something I had on hand for the CNC. And you know, it's going to be inside, nobody's going to see it, so I wasn't really worried about that. If you're doing a painted project, or you're going to milk paint this whole thing or something like that, this would be perfect for a panel because MDF accepts paint very well. And the other thing, because I used MDF and it's going to be very stable, I went ahead and glued all the grooves around here. So this is an incredibly strong panel because it's anchored to the MDF. And this thing is going to be supporting some weight, but that weight is going to be supported on these 2 larger rails. And I made them larger so that when they were on the inside, I could overhang it a little bit, and as you open drawers or as you open doors, you would see a lot of the ingrained, long grain stuff. Which is why, if you notice, these panels, I used rift sawn or bastard sawn grain so that I could get the straight lines all the way through. I wasn't too worried about ultimate stability in these pieces. And as for selecting the front versus back, it was pure cosmetic. I was looking for the thinnest grains on both sides so that they would match up. Now, when I fit these in here, I am going to want them to be flush with the top, because that'll be an extra anchor point for my router tabletop, and they are going to overhang so that it's recessed about the same amount here. So it's also going to overhang that gap I had in the very back. That's the entire reason why we had that. So I need to mark these flush here and here, and we're going to use those same relative techniques I used for establishing these side rails. I just need to figure out a way to hold it at that angle level with the top. And to do that one, we're just going to use a little bit longer stick. If I clamp a slightly longer stick on top, it'll give me a place to rest it so I know that this top will be absolutely flush with that piece right there. So I have a rough idea because of the pencil marks we did on the back where I want the front to be. So I'll just kind of eyeball that spot, wedge it in there, and then using the flat part, just like we did the other time, nick the corner, just the corner. Do the same on bottom, nick just the corner. Then go ahead and relocate it so that you can put the back corner on its spot and do the same to the back. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it right against the back rail, all the way back, and then I'm going to look right here. If this is the reveal I'm happy with, that's what I was going for, it basically terminates right where this round over that I did on this rail ends, which is almost exactly the same as what I did right here. So it's about the same setback. That's what I was going for. But if I wanted to increase it, I could remove wood off the back. If I wanted to decrease it, I guess you could glue a strip on back, but hey. So push it all the way back, and that will give you the perfect reveal. So I'm going to line this up right where my mark is on the back. Flat side against the rail. Make a good heavy mark in front, and also a good heavy mark in back. So I now have a nick for this distance and a nick for the distance coming up front. So I am going to set a gauge to it, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to reset it for each one of my boards, and that'll let me kind of eyeball the straight line, mark it all the way around for each one of the sections. Do that top and bottom. So now that I've done the top and bottom of this one, purposely unset your gauge so that you don't accidentally use that same setting for something else. Then do the same thing to the back and the other boards. And remember, this is just marking stuff out, so you can use any number of squares to do the same exact thing. Now there are a lot of different ways you can remove this waste. Saw, bandsaw, jigsaw, stuff like that. But this really does illustrate the point where hand tool skills just make life so much easier. So just pick up a damn saw. Come over, line up your finger, line up your cut, and have at it. I'm actually using a crosscut saw now. I'm using the wrong saw for that application. But I picked that because I didn't want to be grabbing two saws at once. I just want to go back and forth. And I put more premium on the crosscut because that cut's going to show. This is going to be behind that people aren't going to see that much. Remember, the farther down in the clamp you are, the more stable you're going to be. So you don't have to have your cut being perfectly perpendicular. All you got to do is make sure you follow the line. That can be at any angle you want. Clean up the corner if you need to, and then move on to the other sides. And with that done, you should be able to kind of slide them right in. I've got my pencil lines where I believe they should be. Drop it in. There's that one. Let's see how this one fits. Pretty close. Nice clearance. Not too much of a gap. Now, I believe I mentioned earlier that this interior stuff, I don't want to be permanent. I want it to be solid, but not permanent. That's kind of why I designed it to rest on these. So that'll lock it up and down weight-wise. But for locking it in place, I'm going to use braces. And those same braces I'm also going to use to hold up the structure I'm going to use for my drawers. So that's our next step, is add the internal bracing that's going to lock all this together. Now, to make the bracings, I did the standard milling you've seen me do in the other videos, and I cut out these notches. Nothing I haven't shown you earlier in the video. These notches are designed to actually rest on that inner ledge, and that ledge would transfer any weight I put on them. They are also dead flush with the legs itself. So if I put one on each end, I then have a structure that I can put the base frame for my drawers on so that they can slide on those, utilizing the maximum width. Because if I put any sliders on, my narrow drawers are going to become even narrower. I'm also going to be using these little blocks like this for all the bracing that doesn't need to rest on the settings or create clearance for the side. Now, it's incredibly important, if you're doing it the way I do it, that the small blocks and the long braces are the exact same width, because I'm using a shim to figure out placement for the first one. And your carcass can be as cattywampus as you want, but if you want your drawers to slide smoothly in a cavity, well, then the distance has to be completely parallel. And if I have a kind of jig like this that I can put on the front and the back to get them exactly the same, no matter what the measurement is, my drawers will slide smoothly. So the last thing I did was I cut up a little bit of that leftover whiteboard that I used on the router tabletop. Now, it's about 1/8 of an inch thick, just enough to sit underneath this level on the cleats. And in the next step, I will probably add something underneath it to make it a little bit more sturdy, but all I was doing right now is fitting it. Now create a nice area for us to create sawdust. So what did we do? using braces all the way around, this ain't rattling, this ain't moving, this is solidly in there. The only way I could take it apart is to unscrew all those things. But if I do unscrew it, I'm back to having this case with a nice nice board over there that I might use for another tool or something like that. It's completely up to me in the future if I want repurposes for something else. Chances are I'm not. So, in the next segment, we are going to create 2 doors for the center section. And they are not going to be doors like that. They're going to be one door after the other. See you then.